Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Reform Crime and Sentencing. Who we're affiliated with rcsnow.org, Image for Lives, and Rich Moines Productions. And with that being said, this intro is a prelude to the demonstration that we're going to be talking about, which is a follow-up to a prior episode that we did dealing with a case called State versus Hemstra, which dealt with Mr. Hemstra being released from prison due to the courts granting him relief based upon a motion that he had filed in regards to a case that he had incurred addressing a murder issue, and where he was charged with the offense in the state of Iowa that resulted in a murder. Now, our issue, and the issue that Rich Moines Production has been adamant about, is why that particular case, which awarded Mr. Hemstra relief, didn't afford or accord every other individual that is serving time in the state of Iowa the same relief. Now, I got into that before because it dealt with particular procedural aspects of retroactivity, and I explained in the previous episode that being that the Iowa Supreme Court had closed the door after Mr. Hemstra got relief, every other individual who were similarly situated to Mr. Hemstra was unable to petition the courts to take another look at their case and see if in fact the Hemstra law that was applied to Hemstra applied to the individuals that are currently incarcerated in the state of Iowa under the same circumstances that Mr. Hemstra was sentenced under at that particular point in time. And as I alluded to in the prior episode, was that at the time that Hemstra gained his relief, most of the individuals who were similarly situated to him had not filed petitions in the court to seek relief under the same doctrine of the law at that particular point in time. Now, retroactivity is a catch-all phrase, as it's a court rule which allows individuals to go back and petition based upon a case that has retroactive effect. But the whole key to retroactivity is if the Iowa Supreme Court and the Supreme Court does not grant retroactivity in a particular case, then 9 times out of 10, every individual that comes behind that, if they don't raise that issue, they can't get relief. And one of the grandfather cases that address that concern is called Teague versus Lane, Lane. It's a Supreme Court case. And it gives a breakdown on how retroactivity is applied. Now, Rich Moines Production and his affiliates are trying to do everything in their power to revive that particular issue. And it's an uphill battle because the Iowa Supreme Court closed the door on that particular issue. And I am unaware of any current inmate who is incarcerated who has filed and have taken that case to the United States Supreme Court, which can rule on that issue of retroactivity. So this is just a lead into what has occurred over the last few days in relationship to that, because, as I said, Rich Moyne's production has attended a couple of events that are currently addressing that particular issue. And we're going to get into that issue a little bit more in our next episodes, to where that we can find out exactly what was discussed. I attempted to attend one of those meetings at the college up in Iowa City, but being older and incapable at that particular time, that I took that journey to access GPS and things of that nature, I was unable to attend. But Rich Warren's production attended the one in Iowa City, he attended the one in Dubuque, and he gleaned and shared with that audience his perception about why other individuals who are currently incarcerated under the same circumstances are not experiencing the opportunity to petition the court to get relief based upon the same grounds that Hemster got relief on. Now, what's so unique about that is the fact that there was questions and answers, not only from Rich Moyne's Productions, but the audience that was there, and other members, which were law students, college professors, lawyers, and just concerned citizens that engaged in dialogue that addressed the issue. It's my intent to elicit from Rich Moyne's Productions, Chuck Bruton, the things that were discussed, so that family members who are concerned about their loved ones who are currently serving life imprisonment can have some insight into those issues that were discussed. Be forever mindful. I know this issue is a very hard issue to address, because, like I said, based upon my knowledge and the research I've done on this particular issue, the door was closed at the Iowa Supreme Court. I know of no inmate that sought relief in the federal courts so that they could take it to the United States Supreme Court and open up the door on the main issue. And to me, the main issue, based upon everything I've researched, is the issue of retroactivity. And like I said, that's a court-created concept. It's not a statutory provision or anything like that. It's a court-created rule. And so the court created the rule, dating back to Teague versus Lane and prior to Teague, that where a court sets down precedent, and that precedent is consistent with the rule of law, then individuals can come back in and seek retroactivity on an issue that might be relevant to the issues that they have in their particular case. And unfortunately, as I alluded to in previous episodes, where we get stymied in our process of seeking relief from a sentence that may be unfair, unconstitutional, or discriminatory, is that we don't understand that the proceedings that we enter into require certain litigation, for lack of a better word. And that litigation is incumbent upon being able to argue the issue of retroactivity or the fair administration of justice. And basically they both go hand in hand. That's what retroactivity is based upon, is that where a case comes down and an individual gets relief, then other individuals who follow him within a 1-year period can get the same relief that individual did, if in fact his case meets certain requirements under those particular proceedings. And so You don't find a lot of people fighting for cases that are incumbent upon retroactivity for the simple reason they're at a proceeding, they're at what is called post-sentencing I'm trying to think of the appropriate word, relief. That would be the appropriate word. And that usually comes about in the 2255 or 2254 or 2241 or maybe a 3582C. And so they're stymied because most individuals that have been in prison for 10, 15, 20 years are usually time barred and can't get that relief because they're time barred. So retroactivity is a key component to access the procedures in order to get relief. And that usually comes under a second or successive 2255. And then you need a court of appeals to grant you the second or successive 2255. And that fails, then you have to file in the jurisdiction that you're in and seek relief under what is called a 2241. And that's under Title 28 U.S.C. 2241. So, like I said, I didn't get to attend the Iowa City meeting, which I went to, and I wanted to be able to converse with individuals about this particular issues. But conditions dealing with GBS and things of that nature prohibit me from actually making it to the spot. Then the weather had changed, and I tried to make it back home before it got too bad, but I got caught up in the weather, and it was really a terrifying experience for me. And that's another issue I want to get into later on in one of our next episodes, dealing with how individuals who are locked up for a majority of time are insufficient when it comes to dealing with technology and things of that nature. And that relates to a prior issue that I talked about, talking about the dysfunctional aspect of reentry. And because it puts us at a disadvantage because we're out here in so-called free society, and we're expected to be able to conform and interact with things that we have no knowledge of, because these things are not taught in prisons. We're not prepared upon re-entry to be able to deal with these things, and it puts us at a grave disadvantage, and it's a very frustrating emotion that we take on because we can't adequately adapt to a society who has advanced so much in the last 20 or 30 years. And so it makes us dysfunctional as human beings. And society as a whole is unaware of this. So when you're releasing nonviolent offenders from prison, and they're expected to return and re-enter society in a law-abiding way, and expected to conform to the ideologies that exist, including technology, sometimes we're at a disadvantage. And I think that's critical to the development of the reentry process. And I will talk about that more in a later episode. But as I've spoken to, we're going to speak to Chuck Bruton of Rich Warriors Productions, who attended the Dubuque meeting and the Iowa City meeting and discuss the issue about why other individuals who are similarly situated to Hemstra didn't receive that benefit. Now, we know that the court closed the door on individuals who are currently serving life in prison in the state of Iowa as it relates to the Hemstra issue. Was that fair? Was that just? I mean, why would you close the door and you apply the law to one particular individual, but that law didn't apply to other individuals who were similarly situated. And this is something that we need to address. This is something that we need to, take up. And I'm glad that Iowa City, Dubuque, and Rich Moines Productions have been vocal about this particular point. Because again, retroactivity is not a statutory provision. It's not codified in federal or state law. It's a court rule that was created by the Supreme Court dating back to Teague versus Lane. And that's what established, based upon the precedent of the Supreme Court of the United States, the issue of retroactivity. But a lot of people are confused and think that this is a court rule. I mean, this is a statutory law or a codified law. No, it's not. It's a court-enacted rule that's applied to individuals where a case that encompasses a constitutional right or due process or a Sixth Amendment right can get relief if in fact precedent has been set in a series of cases that allows an individual to benefit from those series of cases. Now, as I told Mr. Bruton in our many discussions about this particular issues, Hemstra petitioned the court and got that relief based upon a case that was prior to Hemstra arguing that particular issue. So he was able to piggyback off that particular case. And again, unfortunately for the men and women who are in prison under similar circumstances, if you got stymied by the Iowa Supreme Court, the only way you could have got relief or had a attempt at relief is you had to exhaust all the state procedures and then take that issue into federal court and take it all the way to the Supreme Court and see if in fact the Supreme Court of the United States would have ruled on the issue of retroactivity. And again, I know of no case that has done that. And so that's what has stymied and has unfortunately caused a lot of people who are currently in prison to suffer the continuation of life sentences without being able to invoke the Hemstra case and the case that preceded Hemstra that allowed Hemstra to get relief. And again, like I said, for the individuals who have family members out here who follow the law, whatever, news articles and things of that nature, you can Google this, and everything that I have just shared with you is online, and it'll give you the whole script of how that particular process worked. Because again, you have a lot of people in prison who have similar circumstances to the Hemstra case, and had it not been for time being a factor, they could have gained a measure of relief from the type of sentences that they got, especially being that their circumstances was similar to the Hemstra case. So again, the next two issues that we get into is going to be that issue, the discussion that took place in Iowa City and Dubuque, and we'll discuss again the issue of how individuals who are coming up out of prison are confronted with dysfunction, due to the lack of proper resources in the reentry process. And like I said, I know that the country is caught up in everything else that's going on: inflation, rising gas prices, unemployment, employment, a lot of things. And so, issues that are dealing with rehabilitation and reentry or on the back burner, especially with the selection of Kevin McCarthy to the majority whip in the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority whip in the House of Representatives, and the administration's problems with having classified documents that subjects him to questions about why are you with these documents. So if they're focused on these things, they can't be focused on the things that are important to individuals who have family members in federal and state prison. That's why we have to stay vigilant. We have to continue to advocate and promote consciousness to our legislators to continue to push forward proposals and bills that adequately provide a measure of fairness within this process. And I'm not, again, as I said on the last episode that I did, I'm not hopeful due to how the House of Representatives has been aligned to the Republicans that this is going to take place within the next 2 to 4 years. It could. Kevin McCarthy might surprise me. Hakeem Jeffries might surprise me. But based upon the record, I don't foresee that happening. But the only way it can happen is if you have a family member that's incarcerated on a severe sentence, which is a nonviolent offense, you have to become more vocal and active in your community and with your congresspeople and start voicing that opinion. Why is not legislation being proposed so that we can reduce the cost to the taxpayer regarding incarceration, where a nonviolent offender better serves our communities by paying taxes and taking care of their responsibilities. Why would we have them in prison and having people who work and pay taxes cover the cost of that when there's no need for that? That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. A nonviolent offender is a nonviolent offender. Why would we incarcerate him for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, life? He ain't committed no harm to anybody. Stole something, wrote a bad check, committed fraud. Okay. Make him pay his just due or her just due to society in the form of taxes. It better helps the communities in which they're from. Make them pay their responsibility to the children and the community by working. Now, I agree. When given the chance, we have people who mess up. If a person mess up, then that person should suffer some consequences, even if it's time in prison. I'm not going to disagree with that. But at the outset, why would we, as an intelligent, the most industrial society in the world, subject taxpayers and voters to foot the bill for individuals who are nonviolent? Nonviolent, that's what I'm saying, nonviolent. By putting them in prison, you subject them to a mindset that in the future creates recidivism. By subjecting a person to a term of imprisonment subjects that same person to a term of recidivism. So it's just a revolving door. And all of our intelligent psychologists, lawmakers, and who have you that benefit from this endeavor would want to keep, that revolving door going. They don't want to hear the conversation about rehabilitation. That's why you haven't heard it in the last 20, 30 years, because they don't believe in it. It doesn't serve that purpose. Prison as a whole is a booming business. So everybody that catches a case, nonviolent, go to prison for what? To appease a booming business where other individuals are benefiting, their families are benefiting, your families are suffering. So, with that being said, our next two episodes are going to deal with the Hemster case and again on the issue of dysfunction. You know, I had a couple people tell me that I'm always rushing. And when they said that to me, I had to sit back and think about what they were saying. And that's all derived. I'm always rushing. And I'm always rushing because incarceration causes you to rush because you're subject to time. And so you only have a certain amount of time to do anything. So you have to rush to get that done. And I come out here to the so-called free society and I'm still rushing. So my people tell me, man, you're always rushing. You're always rushing. And I had to sit back and think about that. And they're right. Because I've been conditioned to rush based upon my time in prison and the time requirements that I had to get things done in prison. And I brought that right back out here. But that makes me dysfunctional. Because I can't take my time and do anything. I'm always rushing. And that's a subject we're going to get into in a later episode. I appreciate you allowing me into your homes tonight, and I hope and pray that each and everybody that has viewed this episode has a very prosperous new year. And again, thank you. May the peace and blessings be upon you.